Now, in addition to using the Ultra virtual sets, you can actually create your own sets for use with the Ultra software. You can use any type of like a digital photo. You could use video clips. You could even create your own virtual sets using a 3D program. One thing you can't recreate at this point in time is the virtual tracking feature, because right now this requires some hand coding by our engineers here at Serious Magic to make these happen. It is something that we're researching for the future. Let me give you an example of the type of sets that you can create right now. They can even have your own B-source monitors, can have foreground elements, and you can also use the pan and zoom feature to add your own camera motion. I'm going to go to my Browse tab, and I have a folder here called Background. Now, these are actually elements that you can download from our support page on our website at seriousmagic.com. Inside this folder, I have two icons in here for background and foreground. These are actually images that I rendered in a 3D program. It took me about 10 minutes, so bear with me. I'm not exactly a 3D designer, but I wanted to give you an example of how I put something like this together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a new project here. And I'm going to start by taking my background element, and I'm going to drag and drop this into the background window. You'll see it appear in my monitor here. Now I'm going to go home, and I'm going to load up a full body clip of Susie standing. This is called Susie Wide Standing. And I'll drag and drop this into my input clip. I'll go to my input tab and crop out those edges that we don't need. And I'll go to my keyer tab, and I'll set the key. Let me scrub through this a little bit. A few quick adjustments to the key. I'm going to change the alpha curve just a bit, adjust the start threshold. I'll also go through and adjust the transparency just a hair. In my spill suppression, I'm going to try and correct for just a bit of spill that I'm seeing in some of the edges. And then finally, I'm going to use the soften matte to just soften the matte a hair and then sharpen it back up again to help define the edging. So now I've placed Susie on the background image that I created in my 3D program. This is just a PNG file that I saved out from my 3D software. This consists of a floor that I've texture mapped some like a wood parquet floor onto, another plane that I've texture mapped sort of a stucco pattern to, and then I've got my lovely 3D model here. I went on the internet and did a search for a 3D model of a big screen television. This kind of looks like the big screen television that my grandfather had in 1979, but still, it'll do the job for what we're doing. Now, if I want to put an image into this television set here, I have to define my project a little bit better so that the source B icon doesn't have a red light on it. We need to have a green light attached to it. The way this is done is in the Virtual Sets tab, I can go to a virtual set folder called Basic, and inside here you'll see two icons. There's one called Simple Keyed Clip. This is the one that we use whenever we're doing just a basic chroma key. It's sort of the default icon that loads up into the Virtual Set tab. We're going to use the one called Simple Keyed with B. I'll drag and drop this into the Virtual Set icon, and you'll see now my B source is now active, and I can drag and drop something in there. I'll go to my Backgrounds tab, and I'll take a picture from my backgrounds here. In this case, I'll take the Colosseum and drag it and drop it into my B source. Now, I'm not immediately seeing the B source show up in here. That's because I need to position the B source appropriately so it's matched into this monitor. I'll go to my Scene tab, and first let me pick up Susie and move her out of the way. She's blocking my monitor there. And now I'm going to choose the B source here, and you'll see that the B source comes in, it's kind of framed up in the upper left corner, and it's behind the background, so I'm not seeing it right now. So what I need to do is pick up this grid and move it over so it approximates where the television set is in my shot. And I'll use the Shift key to kind of shrink the image down and get it to a point where it's positioned and it fills up the entire frame correctly. Now I can also use the input orientation in scene to kind of add a little bit of an angle to my B source, which more closely approximates the angle of the television set itself, so that the image looks like it's appropriately placed in the TV set. Once I've got my session file set up and I'm happy with my project, I can actually save this out by going to File and Save Session As, and I can save this to a session file that I can then bring back in whenever I want, change out the input clip, change out the B source, and I don't have to worry about positioning the layers again. If I wanted to add a foreground element, this could be a cutout of a desk taken from a digital photograph. In this case, I've got an image of a 3D chair. Again, I went out to the internet, found a model of a chair, brought it into my 3D program. In this case, I've saved this out as an individual element with an alpha channel. So what I can do is take this image, drag it and drop it into this optional overlay window, and now I've got a foreground element of this chair that Susie is now standing behind. The overlay layer can be manipulated just like the source B layer. I can select it, and I can pick this up this layer and move it around within the scene. If I wanted to, I could add a pan and zoom to my own virtual set. By going to the Pan and Zoom tab, I can enable this, set a start point for my zoom, and set an end point for my zoom. And again, holding down the Shift key, I could zoom into this particular shot, or zoom all the way in to my television set to do a nice transition to whatever I have playing back in my B source. And those are the basics on how to create your own virtual sets and use them with the Ultra software.